Really get Pipe Bomb Part 2 in Houston, Texas this week? Get into it. This week, we got Monday Night Raw from my hometown of Houston, Texas. I had the privilege of being in the building for this show. You know, over the past several weeks, we have been building to WrestleMania, if that's what you want to call it. Many of the shows have been very lackluster, especially on the SmackDown side. I will say, I believe this week's Raw, while it was not a great show, it was a very good show. And it almost feels like WWE may be listening to me talk smack, because this show finally felt like a show that was on the road to WrestleMania. It felt like a show that gets you excited about some of the feuds going into WrestleMania. There was everything on this show. Again, while it was not a perfect show, everything on this show served a purpose, and you felt like it was moving something forward. And it wasn't. And here's the other thing. When you have these weekly episodic shows that are 2.5, 3 hours, the pacing of those shows matters. This Monday Night Raw moved with a good purpose and pace. It felt like there was a sense of urgency to move some things forward and to keep the viewers locked in. The show could not have kicked off better with CM Punk coming down to the ring. You know, when CM Punk comes out and he doesn't do the "it's clobbering time" and all of that, and he just goes in the ring, tosses the belt, and literally sits Indian style, you know that man has something to say, and somebody's going to get it. And that's exactly what happened. Now, before the show started, there was a graphic that had CM Punk on the screen that obviously wouldn't make it to the air. And the Houston crowd was booing. So I was like, whoa, I'm like, CM Punk is going to get booed today in Houston, Texas. CM Punk can definitely handle boos, he knows how to control a crowd. And there was no better example of that than what he gave us on Monday night. On Monday night came out, he gave us this pipe bomb-esque promo. While no, it's not as iconic as the one from 2011. You got to remember, the one from 2011 made him who he is today. Before the pipe bomb, CM Punk was main event wrestler A. He was a top guy, but he was not a draw. That pipe bomb made him a draw, made him a superstar, made him a mega star. He's already there. So this promo, won't elevate him in that sense. But this promo does elevate the feud with Roman Reigns. It obviously elevated the programming going into WrestleMania. It made Monday Night Raw feel like a better show than probably it would have without that iconic moment happening. And the other thing is, he addressed a lot of things that are, he became the voice of the people in that promo. Now, there is a great debate if he went off script, whether he went off script or not is, I don't think CM Punk gives a shit about a script all that much, right? I think he is given marching orders and he goes out there and he makes it do what it do. I think his whole goal was to cut a promo that woke the industry up and felt like the old CM Punk going into WrestleMania. And mission accomplished. Because I can tell you, being a CM Punk guy, I'm obviously a huge fan of Roman and the Anoa'i family, the Usos and the Fatus, like all that, CM Punk is also a major player. He to me is the closest thing that we've gotten to an Attitude Era, like Stone Cold Steve Austin type, especially during that safe PG era. Oh, he cuts a promo, and first of all, he starts off the promo by saying Houston is a wrestling town. And shout out to Apollo Houston. That is the slogan we use at Apollo Houston, that Houston is a wrestling city or a wrestling town. And so it almost felt like Punk vibes with that, or hard to, it's like, it was one of those moments where it was like, whoa, like CM Punk gets it. And he it was great. He talks about Paul Bosch and the Houston wrestling, from, the 80s and whatnot, because Houston was a huge wrestling city, huge wrestling town, with the Houston wrestling, with Paul Bosch's promotion. There was, Sam Houston Coliseum, had Ric Flair and the Von Erichs and all that. That stuff was rooted here in Houston. Right now, we have the reality of wrestling, Booker T's developmental brand here in Houston, developing some of the best and the brightest talents, from Javon Evans to Trick Williams, Roxanne Perez, now Zilla Fatu, have all gone through Houston in some fashion. Not to mention, we had 2 WrestleManias here. We had WrestleMania 17, we had WrestleMania 25. WrestleMania 17 is highly regarded as the greatest WrestleMania of all time. It was the finale of the Attitude Era. It was great. WrestleMania 25, not as iconic as WrestleMania 17, to say the least, but there is one match on that show that everybody still talks about to this day: Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. 40 minutes of wrestling perfection. CM Punk alludes to there being some ghosts that still haunt him to this day for some things that did not happen. He was alluding to the Night of Champions, the Vengeance Night of Champions that we had in Houston back in the early 2000s. It was the weekend where Chris Benoit unalived himself and his family. At that particular pay-per-view, CM Punk was supposed to face Chris Benoit for the ECW championship. And then there was this, Chris Benoit didn't show up, all that. So that's what he was alluding to there. He goes on to say that Roman Reigns hates him. But now he is going to speak to why he hates Roman Reigns. He talks about all the things he doesn't like about Roman Reigns. He says that it's vanilla, he's boring, he needs help. That's something he's been alluding to all this time, that Roman Reigns needs help. He said that, hey, a couple weeks ago, Roman got the best of me, but he had his cousins. He said, last week, I came down, didn't have any cousins with me, and I put his ass through a table. Roman, he goes on this, a few weeks ago, Roman was on Jimmy Fallon, and Jimmy Fallon said, hey, I'm a bigger star than you. That's why I'm on Jimmy Fallon. And this is Punk's rebuttal to that. He says, you're on Jimmy Fallon because you're safe, because you're boring, because they can control you. They can't control me. You're safe. Those are all fair criticisms about Roman Reigns, to be quite honest with you. And he goes on to say that, he says, that's why they brought your beltless ass out to Jimmy Fallon. Really just establishing the fact that, hey, I am, this authentic person. I'm authentic to who I am. And you are this plastic manufactured company man that is safe. And this is why you get those opportunities. Again, very fair. He then said, this is typically where my promo would end. He said, but I got some things to say. Actually, let's back up a second. He also alluded to Vince McMahon. He says, he talked about how, you were this manufactured guy who's, who cares how many WrestleMania main events you've had. He said first 8 of them were terrible, essentially. And to, CM Punk's hating a little bit there, but a lot of those first 8 were questionable, right? A lot of people say a lot of different things about him and Undertaker headlining 33. But what you have to realize is that match was was kind of supposed to be Undertaker's final match. That was, he left his hat and his trench coat in the ring. It was he wanted Roman to be the one to take him out, but the match ended up being so bad, Undertaker did not want his legacy to be that. So, and then there are other matches, he's had the matches with Brock Lesnar, and, so again, I got where Punk was going there. It definitely was a mediocre first 8, but then, you can't knock what the work he did after 2020. You can't deny that work. But he goes on to say that, you were out here eating dog food for a weird old man, and that was the Vince reference. Then he goes on to say Pat McAfee. And if you didn't catch the MAGA part, that was definitely intentional. He clapped back again, the voice of the people. I 100% think this was kayfabe. This was again to be the voice of the people in this moment, so that because there's been so much backlash that has come from Pat McAfee's promo from Friday. The perfect person to shoot on that is CM Punk. He goes on to talk about or alludes to Ari Emanuel, who has been said to have gotten Pat McAfee into this situation because he is now Pat McAfee's manager and trying to, or agent, and trying to get him to become this big Hollywood superstar in the vein of a Sly Stallone. No, again, I like Pat McAfee. I like what he brings. He has personality. Don't know that I see Sly Stallone in him as a actor, but hey, you know what? He typically kills things that he does. So who's to say he can't step up and be a star to some degree? Goes on to he alludes to Dwayne Johnson. He says Roman comes out with his chest all puffed out and like he's The Rock, and he says at least The Rock is a big Hollywood star, and he said was a big Hollywood star. And he says, you got your cousin on the board of directors, and, just basically all these advantages and things that Roman has, that he doesn't necessarily have. This promo was good. He summed it up by saying, to lower that for TKO to lower ticket prices. I didn't take it as him saying lower ticket prices from now on. I took it as lower ticket prices for WrestleMania so that we can pack out WrestleMania so that the world can see me stomp out their tribal chief. That's what I got from it. Great promo. Again, it casted a very broad net, as again, you had the Benoit references, you had the Vince McMahon reference, Ari Emanuel, Dwayne Johnson, so many things, TKO, ticket prices. It cast such a wide net. At McAfee casted a very broad net as to where that pipe bomb was really centered around John Cena and his dislike for John Cena. And of course, he, every chance he gets, he takes a shot at Dwayne. Great promo. Couldn't have kicked off this Raw any better. The second biggest thing on this show is Oba Femi Brock Lesnar's contract sign. This show did an amazing job of presenting Oba Femi as a mega star. I mentioned it on my last show, Wrestlingbrotha Talk Smack. I mentioned that if you watched last week's SmackDown and you hadn't watched wrestling in a while, you would have thought that the two biggest stars or baby faces on the show were Cody Rhodes and Trick Williams. You would have thought Sami Zayn and Cody Rhodes were the top two heels. Well, on this show, this Monday Night Raw, same thing. If you had not watched wrestling in a while and you're 2 weeks out from WrestleMania, hey, let me catch up, let me see what's going on, you would have thought Oba Femi is the biggest star on Monday Night Raw. CM Punk. CM Punk's already established. You would have thought Oba Femi was the biggest star on the show. This feud has thrust him into a new stratosphere. Every time Oba Femi's name was mentioned, the crowd is going, Oba, Oba, ooh, ooh. Like, they have done a masterful job with him. Not only has this feud elevated Oba Femi, this feud has put a fresh coat of paint on Brock Lesnar. Yes, this feud has put a fresh coat of paint on Brock Lesnar, because Brock Lesnar, when he returned at SummerSlam, and of course you're gonna get the pop from the audience because it's an unexpected return. It's no one cared. No one cared about Brock Lesnar coming back, especially to feud with John Cena. Then they have the match at WrestlePalooza, which was a rehash of the match they had at SummerSlam some 10 years ago. Brock just really hasn't had, like, there hasn't been that. But this has added a layer of intrigue. Brock feels special again. You don't mind him on the TV. But with making Oba feel this way, you have to do the right thing now. Oba Femi has to win at WrestleMania. You cannot make him feel this special, this important, get the fans this invested, and him not beat Brock Lesnar. Now, I love the fact that they saved the contract signing for the ending of the show. It was the main event segment of the show. They brought out Triple H. Triple H loves to make appearances when he thinks something is cooking, and he knows this feud is cooking. So he has to trot himself out there to be like, yep, I did this, right? Because, you know, forget about the other 80% of the card or the show that is absolute dog crap, but I'm doing this. This is where I'm going to insert myself. And love the energy that the crowd in Houston had. I feel like we dropped the ball on Paul Levesque. He should still be getting booed. We got to give him energy. But it's like, oh, we heard the game's theme song. He should have gotten some boo. But didn't happen. Well, the contract signing never happened. These guys never sat down. As soon as Oba, you know, makes his way to the ringside, kind of walks around, Brock goes after him. Of course, a pull-out brawl ensues. The crowd's chanting, let them fight. You know, they break past some of the putties and get to each other again. They throw the desk chairs. They broke a table. Brock at some point throws steps at him. It was crazy. It was crazy. You know, I think, you know, pull apart brawls are obviously overdone right now in this era of WWE programming. This is a feud where it works because this is all about I'm a beast. No, I'm a beast. And it's like two different beasts from two different walks of life, but same outcome. They're still beasts. So it's that immovable force meets the irresistible object, or whatever, however you said, the immovable object meets the irresistible force, or however they used to say that back in the day. That's what this match is. This match is going to kick off night 2 of WrestleMania. Air live on ESPN. This is a hell of a match to be on ESPN. So great work, WWE, with this feud. I just hope they do justice and let Oba win. So we had Rhea Ripley and Io Sky in action against B-Fab and Michin. Jade Cargill came out with B-Fab and Michin, and you know, this match, again, much like the Rhea and Michin match from SmackDown, this match is just filler to further advance the tension and the heat between Rhea and Jade. Io Sky gets a roll-up victory. As soon as that happens, Jade comes in the ring, and B-Fab and Michin grab Rhea, have her in the corner where she can't move. And she's calling the shot. She grabs a kendo stick, Io Sky with it, while Rhea is, you know, tied up with Michin and B-Fab, and she just beats down Io Sky right in front of Rhea Ripley. I thought this was great. That was the best thing in this rivalry so far, because that felt real. That was really well done. And then she ends up hitting Io Sky with the Jaded and right in front of Rhea, kind of like, if I do this to you, I'm retaining this title, and just looking dead at her. And Rhea's just, this was good. This did not feel forced. This did not feel, oh, my body this, and my body's built to fight, and my body's this, and my body's bigger than yours, and my forearm are better than yours, and I'm stronger than you, and I can fight. No, this was the school bully showing you what they're going to do to you in a couple weeks. They just took out your best friend. You're next. Oh, great. I thought that was the third best thing on this show. We have it official that at WrestleMania, we are going to have a 6-man tag team match, putting the Usos and LA Knight against the Vision and I Show Speed. You know, this was the second thing that happened on the show. This felt fine. You know, it was, you go from the CM Punk thing to I Show Speed walking in the back and looking for Danhausen, and Danhausen's back there, and he's telling Danhausen, hey man, like, you got to remove this curse. Like, LA Knight came in my house, and Danhausen's like, oh, just, I can reverse the curse. You just have to mentioned me, and Adam Pearce walks up and tells him, look, man, the best thing for you to do is to leave. And then the Visions show up, and they're like, man, like, everybody's after you, LA Knight's after you, you cost the Usos the title, you're safe with us. So he comes out with a Vision as Austin Theory has a match with LA Knight slated next. It was almost as though IShowSpeed was not aware that the opponent for Theory was LA Knight, because then he's like, he sees a ghost when LA Knight's music hits, even though this was common knowledge. But whatever. The match was decent. You know, they worked a solid match, I think. Again, it had a purpose. It was to set up the match for WrestleMania. You know, in my opinion, this match is probably going to be the match where I get some food and really settle in. I don't think it's going to be bad. I think it'll be entertaining. I mean, IShowSpeed is athletic, so I think he can take a bump or two, and, you know, he has, you know, two other pros in there that can really carry the match, and he can just have some one-off spots here and there. But that was it. Again, it advanced something. It had a purpose. Seth Rollins came out, and, you know, he says he's 100% cleared. He doesn't understand why Gunther would have any business with him unless he's working for Paul Heyman. Gunther comes out from the crowd, gets a pop from the crowd, honestly. Seth Rollins is smart enough to know that he's probably going to sneak up from behind him. He grabs him, tries to put him in a chokehold. They battle a little bit. Of course, you know, Hurricane Helms and Jason Jordan and the rest of the agents from the back come out to try to break him up. Gunther goes to the back, and Gunther is met by Paul Heyman, and Paul Heyman kind of smiles. And so we're like, okay, what's going to happen here? Paul Heyman says, hey, man, I don't know why you did what you did, but I owe you the biggest thank you. Gunther tells him, you don't owe me a thank you. You owe me way more than a thank you. So this is going to turn into, you owe me Brock Lesnar's career. And he's going to cash in at that at SummerSlam in Minnesota. That's where this is. Gunther and Seth Rollins, I am overall looking forward to that match. These are two guys that pretty much have excellent matches with anybody that they have matches with. So together, this match could steal the show. But this is a hell of a matchup, and I'm looking forward to it. We had a 6-man tag team match. This match was fun. I'm not gonna lie to you. This match was fun. It was Los Americanos versus Penta, Javon Evans, and Dragon Lee. This match cooked. This match absolutely cooked from beginning to end. It got a "This is awesome" chant from the crowd, because they did some high-flying spots. It was just absolute. It was an absolute preview of what you're going to see at Mania in this ladder match. After Penta's team picks up the win, after Javon Evans gets the pinfall, we see Rey Mysterio's music hit. And we're like, whoa, we thought he was going to be out. Well, Rey Mysterio says, hey, this ladder match is missing something. Adam Pearce agreed, I'm going to be in the ladder match at WrestleMania. So they added him as the 6th man to this ladder match at WrestleMania. Cool. You know, I'll be honest with you, I don't know what happened, but I'm glad we're not getting Gunther and Rey Mysterio, and I'm glad that Rey Mysterio still gets a spot on this show. Speaking of Mysterio, there was slated to be a match between JD McDonough and Finn Balor. JD McDonough comes out first, and then Finn Balor comes out. As Finn Balor makes his way to the ring, Dominic Mysterio attacks him from behind. They battle a little bit. Finn kind of gets the best of both him and JD for a little bit, until Dominic Mysterio hits him with the Intercontinental Champion. No, not the Intercontinental. I guess it was the AAA Championship, whatever championship Dominic Mysterio has in for AAA. Hits him with it, and then they beat him down. Later, we see Finn Balor in a vignette clearly recorded earlier, and he's basically saying, hey, you know, you've known me for a while, but you've only known one side of me. At WrestleMania, you're going to meet another side of me. And they kind of have this moment where it kind of, the screen kind of positions his face to where it has like a little bit of the demon's makeup on. So we're getting the demon returning at WrestleMania, which is great. So, you know, the demon character is essentially the Incredible Hulk, right? That's Finn Balor. He's Bruce Banner. He's Bruce Banner most of the time. He's been Bruce Banner ever since Roman Reigns took him out and killed the Hulk a few years ago. Now we're going to get Demon at WrestleMania returning, and hopefully the resurgence of it, they protect it and do it justice. Overall, it was a great show. We also had a match between Lash Legend and Bayley, which was just there to set up and further advance the feud for the tag team four-way match that they're going to have at WrestleMania. Nothing to write home about. Bayley got the win after Lyra Valkyria holds Lash Legend's leg down. So I'm glad they at least protected Lash Legend in defeat, because I think they're going to have big plans for her after WrestleMania. Overall, this was a very solid show. You know, it did exactly what it needed to do. Now, there has been talk that, oh, Roman didn't show up, and we knew Roman wasn't going to be on this show when his dates dropped. Roman is very selective with the dates that he has, because he has very select dates that he appears on television. Last time Raw was in Houston, maybe 8-10 months ago, Roman was on the show. He's already done a Houston date within the rolling 12-month calendar. So it kind of didn't make sense for one of his appearances to be in Houston. And if you're going to drop a legendary pipe bomb like that, last thing I needed was the OTC's music to come out and interrupt that promo. Roman Reigns was not needed on this show. They did so much other good stuff on this show that you did not feel it. You had a lot of stars on this show. It felt good. You had Rey Mysterio return. You had Seth Rollins. You had a Gunther appearance. You had Brock Lesnar. You had Femi. You had CM Punk. The show was carried with stars. There was not a bunch of these 3-4 segment show matches that kept the pacing of the show good. This was good. I would give Raw, if it was a star rating, I would give it a 3.5 out of 5. Maybe 4. You know, especially if we're just judging it based on recent memory, probably a 4. I am looking forward to seeing what they do on this